What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It presents Loki Through the Years, a show where we look at every episode of the Disney Plus television show Loki and pair it up finally with a movie about time travel to discuss the themes, the genre, how it affects this character in the MCU, and how it has evolved within our own industry. As always, I am your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is Jamie Jarrah
Hello.
and Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And we'll be going on episode 4 along with About Time. Whew, let's get into this. What did we think of episode 4? I go really fast in the heat wave and our outlines. It's just point, point, point. It's very, very hot in California.
I thought you did a good job this week. It was pretty detailed.
Great. I just made it as I talk. I'm like, okay, here we go.
No, yeah.
It's so sweaty. Yeah, no, it's Loki's there. It's fine. What did we think of episode 4? Jamie, let us know.
I enjoyed it immensely. I'm very here for this weird romance that I totally called last week. I cannot wait to see where it's going with that ending. I just think it's just a lot of fun. This show, I'm really interested to see where it's gonna go with only 2 episodes left. But I'm enjoying the ride right now.
Yeah, this was the episode. I like this series as a whole, but this last week was the episode. I can see how some people are kind of like, let's get to it. This was the episode that got to it. They're like, all right, cool, we're in it, let's go. And there were about 3 different moments, and I was like, oh shit, whoa, what? In this one episode. So I was amped from start to finish. I love the relationship. You put love into anything, and I'm a sucker for it. So I was like, yeah, this is great. Just the look that they gave each other. I was like, oh my god, they're into each other. This is gonna be great. And just the look that they give each other when they are brought back together before they hit the elevator, and she just kind of gives the "Are you okay?" and he just does like the head nod. I was like, I feel all of that. All of that is great. So the emotional moments are great. We get a lot of just good realization moments from both Mobius and B15. So it's kind of just like, this is good. This is what I want to get to wherever we go for the next 2 episodes. I also will say that in the throwaway line, I loved it because that was one of my scream moments. Mobius just mentioning vampires made me lose my shit a little bit.
Yes. Oh god, I'm right there with you.
I agree. I love The Last Jedi, so obviously this was a great episode. We took a lot of parallels in that last fight. We have a fake out of the villain. We're cutting people in half. Back-to-back fighting with a torrid love story in a throne room. Incredible. But even before all of that, the one thing I like the most about multiverse stories is just seeing the worlds I've seen differently. So opening on Sylvie's Asgard with her playing with Fenrir and other like actual Nordic mythology toys. I love it. Another Last Jedi parallel because obviously Broom Boy was playing with toys at the end because that movie is great. And I will have nothing else said about it. Seeing her kind of get to play and watching them take a child has such more of a weight, I thought, than like, they get Loki. He takes the Tesseract. He shows up. They come in. He's a criminal. The idea that like a kid could go do something and break some sort of timeline and just be abducted and thrown into this without any real notice or what's going on or hesitation.
Right.
It's very Doctor Who again. I'm a sucker for the last of something. Any person who's the last of their world, their creed, their people. I love it in my sci-fi. Seeing her go through the TVA under that process and just even seeing Asgard, like it didn't look that different from the one we know, but it was a reverse shot that we had never seen.
Yeah.
And I was like, ha! Even this is great. We see it from over here. It's like flying over a city, and you're like, I think that's my house. And everyone has pools but you. So I loved that. Watching her escape, it really adds a lot of weight to that character to be like, oh, she's been doing this since she was like 6.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know why. And so therefore she's grown up in cataclysmic world-ending events her entire life, just hopping from death to death to death, not even knowing what her nexus event is.
Right.
And I, similarly to any other, how are they going to get out of this one? They're just going to come and get them. And watching this like branch spike up like it's GameStop stock was incredible. It adds a lot of just even like nuance to the TVA and what they're watching to see something rise up that way and go, well, have you ever even seen a branch split off this way? Which means there's also different types of splits, because we see it when she blows up the timeline and there's all these little ripples. This was just a straight up shot, which really, I don't know what it means. I don't know what it could mean. Are we just in some Southland Tale stuff where
so when
they're
these two
touching?
bang, it's about to be crazy. That line is going to be like, what?
I mean, look, we all saw Southland Tales except for Jamie.
Yeah, I clearly need to watch this movie because you bring it up every week.
I mean, it's the new Power Rangers. But I mean, it's not just that one. There's other time travel movies that are like, don't touch each other because you'll blow it all up.
Yeah.
But so we might have that. We don't even really know. Like, we keep thinking of Nexus events the way that the Avengers go through time and started a new reality. And the Ancient One explains it with a line of, you branched it off, but you can fix it by trimming the branches, blah, 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 blah. Which I think for anyone being like, but why did the Avengers do it? It's like, well, Cap went and trimmed all the branches and it's steady. But does that also mean then that all of these other branches have a certain severity to it? Are we on a alert system with orange and yellow and green and blue? Are there some they don't care about? Is like Peggy and Steve off in a world like a little bump that they're like, whatever, who cares, when all this other stuff is going on? It raises a lot of questions.
It raised a lot of questions. Like I was already shady with Gugu's character anyway, but the TVA as a whole, you're sitting there thinking like, wait a minute. So anytime that there is a variant, a Nexus event, and you go, have you guys just been collecting people to work at the TVA this whole time? Because my God.
Well, that seems to be what Sylvie said, is that all of these people are variants. And like, how else would you gainfully employ the time police? You would take all the criminals into it. So
I love that the last two Marvel shows were both like, F the police.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Iron Man's whole thing. Black Widow did it in Winter Soldier. There's been a lot of moments where Marvel characters have sat down and been like, you know what sucks? Institutions.
Yeah.
But then, of course, we get the Owen Wilson of it all. I love watching him. You're a bad friend. That's what you are. I'm a sucker for it. Most Marvel movies are just how the power of friendship can defeat Thanos. So, of course, we have to see that Loki's a bad friend. Lady Sif's return to the MCU.
Yes.
Part of me is like, give me something real. Get her in Thor 4. Get her a show.
She's in 4.
Good. These are the breaking news articles that I come to record here.
Yeah, she's
here third.
Instagram to be like, well, we already knew she was in it, but she like confirmed, she's like, I'm here to stay. I'm back and I'm here to stay. I love that, like, because after the second Thor movie, she was in 2 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but that's the last time we've seen her. So I'm excited.
But she had a network gig that they couldn't contractually get her for a couple of. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well now we have that dump trunk of money that we just send to people's homes in Laurel Canyon.
Yeah. The B-15 part was amazing, because her just saying I look happy broke me. I was like, oh
that
God.
Scene bringing them back to the Rocksmart shopping center, just the look and feel of this show is continuously amazing. Like they've just got I'm so glad that cinematographer is on Wakanda forever, because that is just gonna look great.
I'm interviewing the costume designer next week, and I can't wait to talk about some of those looks, especially like the Lamentis costumes. So great.
So this was probably my favorite episode. If they stick this landing, it's a contender to top WandaVision. And I know we shouldn't compare blah, 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 but I'm going to. Say you can't compare apples and oranges, but if you taste an apple and then you taste an orange, you will have a preference.
You will like one versus the other.
Yeah, and I mean, we all rank them. That's natural. I mean, this is not going to beat WandaVision for me, but it's definitely has the potential to be in my top 5.
Oh yeah. But I was like, we'll see how they do it. That last fight, the twist. Where is Owen Wilson? I love seeing Loki with all these new Lokis, boastful Loki, classic Loki, child Loki,
reptilian Loki.
Another young Avenger is on the table. Oh, yeah, anything is possible.
They are stacking this board. I'm like, I see it. I love it.
This was the best one to me because it really, really built out this idea of like, you don't know what's coming. He just turned off his camera. But it was very interesting to like, so much of building the universe is building the MCU, and this really built Loki's story more than like, oh, how will the White Vision affect this here, and this will affect this here, and I'm like, there's something refreshing about just building the TVA and Loki's arc that will obviously get built into this bigger giant machine that we've been watching for years, but I loved it. I loved every single moment of it. But enough about Loki.
Yes.
I think. How did everyone feel about Time, the 2013 movie with Domhnall Gleeson and Rachel McAdams, time-traveling romance? All of the men in his family, when they turn 21, have the ability to go through time, only backwards, not forwards. He, of course, uses it to manipulate a woman to loving him forever and goes on a journey through time. It's a comedy, I guess. How did we all feel about this?
It's very Richard Curtis, who also did Love Actually. When this movie came out, I loved it, and rewatching it now, I still I like it, but I wouldn't. I'm good on for a while. I'm watching it. I totally agree. While it's not like everything he does is totally unforgivable, but just the way that he like repeats her words back to her to get her to fall for him is so icky.
Yeah.
I don't care for that. One thing, I picked the movie this week. Sorry. And one thing I forgot that really worked so perfectly is that this movie also features 2 seconds of Richard E. Grant, just like the episode of Loki does. I really thought that was a delightful parallel. Yeah, the movie, it's like, it's cute, and especially like the dad stuff towards the end like really gets me. I totally tear up at the end.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of weird stuff, and it is very much like the women have nothing to do in this movie. Like Rachel McAdams is a ridiculous character, and like everything about, like, she's just a nothing character, and I don't buy her as somebody who's like insecure and doesn't think she's
because she looks like Rachel McAdams.
Yeah.
Yeah, first time I saw this, it's interesting. I sort of had the same thing. I was sitting there like, that's a little gross way to keep this girl, and then using her lines was one thing. I already thought that was terrible, but I also just thought the whole, like, you're just going to stalk her this whole time and then use the information that you got there to jump ahead of the other guys. Everything that he's doing is filthy. And so it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, this romance doesn't really work for me. But where it did work was I did dig the relationship that he had with both Kit Kat, his sister, and his father. Like, those parts I dug. I love the concept of saying, hey, I need to fix my sister. My sister is going through a lot of stuff, but I can't fix her the way that I want to, because if I do, it changes everything that I've sort of set up for myself. And that, making that decision, like, some of these things I gotta let my sister go through, but I'll be here for her on the other end of it. That was great. The stuff with the father, going back into seeing him and spending that time, but knowing this is going to be the last time you see him, because can't keep going back there, because if you do, you're going to mess up your last child. I was like, oh, those are the sweet spots. The relationship part of this, though, I was like, I don't like any of that. Mm-mm.
Well, and it almost plays like 4 episodes of a TV show, because the first act is Margot Robbie and this weird will they won't they wait till the end of summer. Oh, now I'll go back in time and not wait, but now she's going to shoot me down and tell me to wait till the end. And then she just vanishes from the movie for a while.
Yeah.
And then we spend another like weird episode going to the like pitch black restaurant where they can't see each other and then meeting each other, and then he's got to go back in time and fix this guy's play for some reason, even though he's nothing but rude to him.
Tom Hollander, though, is my favorite part of this movie.
Tom Hollander is great.
He's great.
I was so confused as to why he felt the need to go back. Like, even in my brain, I'm like, one, that's going to mess up whatever the heck. You're not going to be at the date if you're doing this. That was my first thought. But two, the original timeline of you doing this, you weren't even there. So why would you be there now? Like, it just didn't make
there was
any
no
sense to me.
agency for him to go help that character.
No.
It also implies that his plan was like, I've got this number. I can go back in time and then cold call a stranger into loving me.
Also, I always thought like there could have been a workaround for this. He could have gotten a friend to be like, hey, maybe if you like go backstage in the play and hold up this sign. I don't know. It just feels like he could have had his cake and eat it too. You have the power to time travel, and you were utilizing it the weakest way.
The most
possible.
bizarre.
Well, even like off the jump when his dad is giving him advice, and his dad is like, well, everyone in our families use it for different reasons. I just want to read every book ever.
That's what I would do. I would just watch movies.
Well, this is where it gets really messy though, because in the back end of it, I'm like, well, if you can then take other people with you through the time when he takes Kit Kat back, then why don't you just grab the guy who effed up the line and take him back and be like, hey, you need to know your damn line. Like, that would have been the easy workaround for that. But
then he would know.
That's true. It's true. But it's just like there's the time stuff starts making
we start jumping around. We can go forward, we can bring the sister back, we can change our kids. You start to get a lot of like murky stuff they didn't say, because I feel like the biggest problem with that the movie has is that there's just no conflict for a while. Like, once he goes through the 10,000th time to get Rachel McAdams, and like Spider-Man 2 just recites poetry at her until she falls for him and just keeps repeating the same photographer information. Nothing,
Wikipedia, if you will.
Right. Nothing happens for like 45 minutes. They're just together. They get married. They decide to have a kid. And then the movie becomes about cancer.
Yeah. Well, Kit Kat first. They get the drunken Kit Kat relationship, which... here's the thing. They established early that Kit Kat is like the wild child of it, but we don't really get that Kit Kat is in an abusive relationship until that moment. I was like, hey, if this is what we're going to do, we probably should have posited this seed a little earlier, because all of a sudden this feels like this came out of nowhere.
Also, so he learned he couldn't take her back and fix her from the beginning, but he still could have prevented that accident. He could have just gone to that morning. I don't see why he still put her in the accident.
Yeah, he really overthinks these situations.
Yeah.
You gotta take your lumps. I will say,
I do like the sequence where he's like reliving each day, like without like the stress of it. I kind of like that idea. But then in the end, he's like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just appreciating the days as they are. And it's like, I guess. I don't really understand like what the message really is supposed to be.
Well, that's where like the thematic rules of the movie get weird, because we do the arc with his dad. They go back in time and like enjoy childhood again. And then he realizes that he's not a god, and he can't save his sister, and he can't save his dad, and he can't save this, but he can form a relationship with somebody. And his lesson becomes like, live your life. Each day is a gift, and we can't do anything. We have to just live and appreciate it. And then he like drops a hint that his sister's like a terrible mom. Like, at one point he's like, we had to watch Kit Kat become a mom, even though she's not a very safe mother. And I was like,
at it.
What? So
shitting on the women again. Yay!
But then I'm like, so if the theme of this movie is just live your life, one, how is that really applicable to anybody in the real world? Because we cannot time travel. So I just have to go, okay, are you saying I shouldn't have anxiety then? Is that what you're saying to me? But he also doesn't undo anything else. Like, he realizes that he can't save his dad and sister. And you'd think that he also would have realized, and like keep his kid. He changes the gender of his kid, and or the sex of his kid, and for some reason that upsets him. Like he gets there and is like, "Oh no, I have a new kid," even though no one but me would know this.
No, I don't know. I think that's pretty messed up.
I think that's weird only because as a parent, you watched your young daughter, like you did the walking, you did all that stuff with the girl, and all of a sudden you come back and you're like, you have a 2-year-old boy who's walking and talking, and you're like, wait, well, hold on, that's not. But again, I don't have a bond with you.
If the original rules of the movie are that you can't jump forward, he shouldn't cut to his kid being 2.
He wasn't. He doesn't ever jump forward. I don't know. That doesn't actually happen. He's just going back.
He's going back, and when he's going back,
he messed up too much, so it changed.
But you can't return. You have to relive all of your days.
No, you can return.
Yeah, because he goes.
They said you
that's
can go
going forward.
No, that doesn't count as going forward. You're just going back.
Back to the time you were at.
No, if I go back,
but you can't. Right, so you're going back to the time you were at. You can't go beyond that point in time. Like, so he couldn't go to his kid being 5.
Oh, that's even worse. So many things. That's the butterfly effect now.
Tracks. I don't have a problem with that.
Now you're in butterfly effect rules, and you need new memories. So many.
Where that gets weird for me though is what bothered me about that whole thing is that he went back, got his little daughter back, but then they had a second kid, and it was the exact same kid that was the boy switch, and I was just like, well, the fuck?
I didn't notice that.
The boy that they had playing the kid that he came back with was the boy.
That sperm was on deck,
they're all
Terrence.
about one sperm. Like if you're gonna have Bill Nye say the words "same sperm," then that.
Which I also was like, okay, so you started the movie being like, you move a rock, you don't destroy the world. But if I do everything exactly the same, a different sperm might. But then there would be other butterfly effects.
I was like, this is where I call bullshit, guys. That kid should not look the same as the kid that he saw.
I didn't even notice that. That's really funny.
Regardless, I think for the theme of the movie to be like, live every day, he should have gone back to his 21st birthday and been like, I'm not using it.
Right. I'm just going to go through.
We'll see if Rachel McAdams loves me without me explaining photography to her.
And at the very least, I'll get to bang Margot Robbie.
Weird obsession to have. I don't know. No offense to Kate Moss. It just seemed like a weird decision of all the people in the world for her to be obsessed with. Maybe that's just.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not in the art world, so I don't know how big, but I feel like I as much as I know about art, that doesn't seem like that's a name that would just fly off the lips. Like, oh man, Kate Moss.
I like that About Time has been the first time travel movie that we've been like, wait a minute, the rules. Time Cop, Back to the Future, Star Trek. We're like, there's all tracks.
Well, I think that it's twofold. One, they play fast and loose with it, but two, I think that for Back to the Future and like Avengers, we don't question as much because we like the rest. We love the rest of the movie. Whereas this movie is like, oh, this is fine. So we can we pick at the time travel a little bit more.
Add some conflict. Rachel, he comes out of that being like, nobody should have time travel. I'm not going to tell my wife about it.
Wait, what about he has a son? What's going to happen with his son?
Eventually he's going to have to let that boy know.
Well, yeah, because I'm like, could his son sneeze and accidentally travel through time?
When he turns 21, it's hitting the fan. I also look, I know that that's part of the rules, but I also really feel like it's disingenuous. If you are in a married couple, it feels weird to not tell your significant other that I also have this ability.
Well, especially when it's like, hey, you were into me, and then I had to go save somebody's play, which was at the time, let's be clear, more important than you. Because that's why I went back in time. And then when I came back, proving again that just coming back to my same moment doesn't quite work. I didn't have your number and we weren't together, and instead you were dating somebody else. So I figured out where you were at a certain time and day and went there uninvited under the guise that I was your friend, and then saw you outside
and just start spouting off.
Got you out of that. Yeah. And then I went back one more time. Also, the first time we had sex, I did it like 5 times to you.
That was creepy too. Yeah.
Don't care for that. One thing I did like is that the last time I watched this movie, I did not know who Margot Robbie or Vanessa Kirby were. So I was like, that was a fun, pleasant surprise.
Yeah, both of them are like superstars now. I was like, oh, Hobbs and Shaw, like this is great. And Margot is like a goddess now.
Wild that this was the same year as Wolf of Wall Street.
I know. I looked that up and I saw that it was the same year, and I was like, oh, she has had a great year that year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Blake and I mentioned this, like two completely different like styles of role. Because this one she plays, the younger version of her, when he sees her again, she's like full on done, but she feels like a girl next door in this. But in Wolf of Wall Street, my lord, like she's like a goddess, like that puts her on the map. So it's like weird for her to do two different things in the same year.
Speaking of doing two different things in the same year, this brings us back to Loki, who might do several people in the same year through time. Obviously, the reason we have chosen this movie for this episode is the romance. So I guess the first really thing to figure out is like, what are the rules with time travel romance? This one, as we kind of already said, it gets a little murky. You get into some time travel consent rules that, even Back to the Future, Marty was like, I shouldn't do anything. I'll leave my girlfriend in this barred community, assuming it'll get better. But yeah. But
well, I was gonna say, it's funny because like in the about time problem is like he's like manipulating her and stuff, and I know that some people are struggling with the Sylvie and Loki relationship because like they're the same things. But
They're
I
technically the same.
anyone because there are people who are like it's incest, and I'm sorry, but having sex with yourself is not incest.
But I say
no,
it's like
masturbation.
Right, it's like there's a word for it, but incest is not it.
Yes, yeah. and also, but also like I don't agree at all with that. But one thing that I think that those people are really neglecting to focus on is that it's about self-love. It's about Loki learning to love himself, and I think that that's really awesome. Loki has a lot of like self issues.
Well,
and I think this is good for him.
He's lived a lot of his life not believing that he was valued to love, like he was a person that deserved having love, or being able to love. So that's what this is sort of putting into play, which is like, oh, this is a fun sort of way to play with that or get him to that point. Because I mean, we've talked about this before. We've never really seen a lot outside of the Pepper Potts and Tony of it all, and to a certain extent Steve, but he was so separated from Peggy. We don't really see that many like, let's see the impetus, let's see the seeds of this relationship start. And so you're
Gamora and Star-Lord.
That's true, but although
we have a weird gap,
we miss so much of when they are established as a relationship. Like we go from them like hating each other and then kind of playing around to the next thing we know, they're actually a couple.
It's a weird jump. Some unspoken thing in Guardians 2 to I love you in Infinity War.
Well, it's one of the few movies that hops continuity of release, and it's like those two movies are like Guardians 1 and 2 are something like a week or two apart.
Yeah.
They're both before Age of Ultron on Earth.
Yes. So we don't really get to see that
on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and that's Fitzsimmons. So
that's true. We do get that there.
And there's time travel. There's a lot of time travel involved with that relationship as well.
Yes. She gets stuck on an entire that's fun.
Yeah, space travel and time travel.
Correct.
And space and time travel. Like they do it all.
Correct. But it's great to see Loki sort of get to play in that world, because this is a character we normally he's always the bad guy. So we're getting to see him and see if he's deserving of love, which is a great path to sort of take this character on.
Well, and Jamie, I'm glad you brought up that theme and idea of self-love, because I had not thought of that at all. And what I kind of was going to posit of like, is this just like really narcissistic? And I think that a lot of people are focusing on sex. And they're like, oh, these characters are the sex, and which is because like that's what happens when you put two attractive people on screens. Is I'm going to be like, are they gonna?
They should be.
They're going to touch parts.
Yeah.
But it's interesting thinking about it through the lens of learning to love yourself and learning to see yourself a different way, because it also takes the narcissism out of it and almost makes it. What's the inverse of narcissism? Not altruism, because that's helping other people. This is loving yourself. Selfless. That's it. Let's go with that. That's a good one.
I do want to say though, I do think there is still a level of narcissism there, because it's still Loki. I mean, I think that's definitely still a factor, but I don't think it's the main factor.
Well, I think it's also, I think that's why at the top of this episode, they show us like this Loki, Sylvie, I'm going to refer to her. Sylvie is very different than Loki, because she was taken away from her home as a kid, and she's just been fending for herself. So her world and what she is very different than whatever Loki actually is. So they're not a one-to-one replicant of each other.
I feel like one thing that we don't talk a lot about with Loki's character is that he's kind of like a brat, like a spoiled brat. Like he's the guy who grew up in a suburb, whose dad had like a great company, but he had a brother who got the job first, and then he decided to burn it all down and pretend everybody hated him. And it's like, if you had just sat still,
yeah,
you're the privilege, and then you've just decided that you're, oh, I should be ruling Earth. Obviously,
it's clearly I'm the smartest person in this room. I should be running all of this, and then you get he gets the video montage like, oh, my brother loved me. My mother loved. Oh,
yeah. It's like you could just have sat in your stupid throne room with wine and grapes and men and women and magic and just hung out while your brother was like, I have to save the world.
I'm fighting
everyone. You could have just fucking kicked your feet up with a coconut, but no.
Yeah.
But Sylvie has like, her life is war.
Right.
And so when he's like, was it bad for you? And she's like, not really. You're like, oh, she's better than you because like you're a bitch.
It also explains how she is so good at hand-to-hand combat because like, oh, she's had to fend for herself forever.
Also, the TVA kind of like low-key sucks at their jobs. Like she bites that girl's arm and then she just watches Sylvie run away.
And no one is like even close to being there to stop her. I was like,
no one in the room thought to get up and like try. You guys can teleport through space and time.
Like you all are aware that in this moment she has no powers. You can go after her.
Come on. I really was waiting for that judge to be like, you suck. We all just watched you watch her run away.
She 100% should not be in charge of the TVA after that. You're like, no, we cannot give you the keys to this. You effed up big time.
That's why it might be her lover controlling the TVA.
Especially the way that the timekeeper robot folks looked with the helmet and everything. I was like, oh, we're getting into Kang. It's happening.
So then I guess the question becomes, if it's a little bit of self-love and a little bit of narcissism, if Loki is truly going through an arc to like himself, but also like himself, is he going to become a better person, or is he just going to be like more like Loki at the end of this?
Oh, I think he's definitely on track to be better. But you know, he was better. The other version of him was better. I mean, he did sacrifice himself for Thor. It's just a different journey, and I think he's going to be better. And some people have wondered, like, is he going to go back and let himself play out again? I don't think that's what's going to happen.
No, because they keep saying reset it, so they abduct him, and then that world happens.
Yeah,
I think it's like he doesn't need to go back.
Yeah.
Right. Right. There's a Loki that is still there going through the process that we.
I know we're not using Earth 616 because that's the comics, and because Mysterio said it, and Mysterio is a liar. But if this is Earth 616, then like this is just Loki Earth 65287. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why they're numbers, so we know what multiverse they're from instead of names.
Yeah.
But what's next on my agenda? We talked about how About Time handles romance. Anybody want to vamp for a second while I find myself here?
I think that part of it, we need to sort of get into what the Sylvie of it, because Sylvie, we still clearly need to see what it is she wants at the TVA. And I think she just wants to break it down to the barest to see why her whole thing. And this is
why did you take me?
Why did you take me? Because Gugu's response, she knows what she's doing. Like she knows that all she wants is an answer as to why was I pulled from this. And she's like, why did you take me? And she's like, I don't know.
It seems like if it's true that there's a secret timeline, wouldn't it be just the fact that she's a girl? Like Loki was supposed to be this Loki. Again, I think that's all bullshit. I don't think that there is one true sacred timeline.
No, because then they would have taken her at birth, right?
Exactly. That's why I don't. Correct. That's why there's something. There is a question that still needs to be answered.
And were they collect? Because here's where this gets interesting to me, and I'm kind of confused. Is like Loki on the Stinger timeline is Tom Hiddleston, but we see in the post-credit sequence how there are all the other Lokis that have all been pruned, and they clearly that is probably what they were going to end up doing with Sylvie. So maybe they were just like, we need to put all the ones that are not in the likeness of Tom Hiddleston away. Like they need to go. They cannot be on the board. They all have to look like Loki Prime. That's what I'll call him, because it just seems weird that because we saw on the video that they showed like all the variants of Lokis sort of still looked like Tom Hiddleston in some way or another until we then saw Sylvie, and then we see all the three that have been pruned.
Well, the multiverse is a big place.
Yeah.
If those are even all Lokis, right? Like we don't know. There could be a lot of different variations there. Are we really getting into some Rick and Morty shit where there's a Marvel universe of alligators running around? Like,
I love that.
Sign me up. I want to see alligator Captain America and alligator Iron Man, and crocodile Thor, and
yeah.
In fact, I demand it.
I'd watch, like, that'd be a cute little animated series, like Muppet Babies, but they're all crocodiles.
Oh, that would be fun.
I would watch it. Disney has a lot of money.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I don't know. Based on the way that they established how the pruning works, that means that Mobius is still around somewhere as well.
Like that great meme that's going around of him with all the Owen Wilson characters.
Yeah.
Lightning McQueen and Wedding Crashers and everything.
Yeah. I want this season to end with him on a fucking jet ski. Like
there's no way they're not going to do that. I mean, they have to.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be great. But it's interesting then, because I feel like what's really posited by both this and About Time are the idea of a happy ending. We've talked a lot about Loki's arc and where he's going, and he's going to change, and he's going to be with Sylvie. Is Sylvie going to get what she's looking for? But both, because there's time travel involved and therefore a little bit of manipulation, be it the TVA or the main characters in About Time, the men, you kind of have to wonder, are what they're suggesting, is it your happiness over the greater good? Are we going to see Loki finally have a chance to be happy and choose that over whatever timeline he left in the MCU? Are we going to then even revisit that? Like how, you get into real big multiverse time travel questions when you go, well, is there now just a version of the MCU without its Tesseract? Or have they really truly reset that timeline to be the main one, like the Ancient One suggests?
If we were living in an alternate reality, I would think it was going to end that way, like Loki sacrificing whatever. But the fact that we know the title of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness really leads me to believe this show's going to end with chaos.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to end terribly. Like, I think this is what happens, and I think this is when you put somebody like Loki. Love stories are always hard, but I think where this seems to be heading is that Loki is going to admit his love to Sylvie and fall in love, and then they're going to take Sylvie off the board, and Loki is going to lose his damn mind. And I think that's where we're headed, and I think that's where we're going to get Loki just going ape shit in the back end of this, probably trying to go to multiple timelines, multiverses to find her, to get her back. That's I think Loki is about to lose it.
It seems like there's going to be a season 2, like based on rumors and stuff. I'm pretty sure we're getting a season 2 of this show, so I wouldn't be surprised if it were in like a Gamora situation where she dies, but he's going to find her again, and I'd be into that. Yeah. I would hate it if Sylvie was gone for good, but I wouldn't mind a little drama.
Yeah.
No, I think that's right. I think it's interesting because About Time kind of ruins the world in the context of the people he's manipulated, and relationships that didn't get to happen, and kids and all these other things. And this is like a full sci-fi destruction of that. If we really are to believe that WandaVision, Loki, Spider-Man 3 is all building up to the Multiverse of Madness, one, that movie's going to be bonkers. Two, I don't know that I buy that everything's as interconnected as we are crossing our fingers about. I kind of think that WandaVision is WandaVision, and it's going to be good to know where Wanda is when we get to Doctor Strange 2, but is she going to be hunting for her kids? Is White Vision going to be there? Is Tom Holland going to be with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and they're hanging out?
I think one important thing to note is the WandaVision Nexus commercial.
That's true.
the depression pills were called like Nexus, I think.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, that's not insignificant.
No, that MCU, they don't put things on the board happenstance.
But I think I almost think it's going to be flipped. That Tom Hiddleston is going to go off the board, and we're going to follow Sylvie, and she's going to go on the search. And I could I could almost see that the Multiverse of Madness is more like Doctor Strange, Wanda, and Sylvie. And she gets into the main MCU, and Doctor Strange is like, well, look, in our world, he had to die.
Right. He's a terrible man.
Like, because outside of Ragnarok, Doctor Strange and Loki don't really interact. And their only interaction is he's like, you're too powerful to be around. And like, go get your dad. And then he's gone. So it would be really interesting to watch that, especially if because it is No Way Home and then Doctor Strange too, right?
Yeah, No Way Home is December. So the Strange is after that. Yeah.
Thor I think is in between the two.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff in between.
Oh, there's a lot. But I know Spidey's December and then Strange is after that. Yeah.
I think it's
on my birthday now.
Yeah. One thing that's kind of a left field, but I just saw this on Twitter, and I think it's interesting to note, is that Sylvie's power to like go into memories that Loki doesn't, that is like asking about, he doesn't have. He technically does that to Valkyrie in Ragnarok.
He does. That's right.
But this is him. Obviously, he hasn't gotten that. So
he hasn't gotten to that point yet.
But between 2012 and Ragnarok, did other Loki gain the power to do that?
Right.
I didn't connect that until I saw it in a tweet, and I'm curious about that aspect of it.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting because it almost feels like what they're implying right now is that Loki doesn't get a happy ending. As soon as they're happy, the thing spikes up.
Break it. Yeah.
I mean, the other big question then, is like, is Miss Minutes running the TVA?
Yeah, where's she? More her.
I demand more Miss Minutes.
I know. I was so happy about this episode. Then at the end of it, I was like, that was a great episode. Where the hell is Miss Minutes? I need more of her.
Who knows? No, this was great. There's only 2 more, and I don't know where they're going to go. I like that we now have a lot of weird time travel romance stories. I don't think there's enough, even though Rachel McAdams has been in like 3.
4. I'm glad you brought that up because we have to talk about this. She, Time Traveler's Wife.
Yeah.
About Time. Midnight in Paris, which is funny because Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson are in that movie. And then Doctor Strange counts for sure.
Yeah.
That, like, what a weird
brand.
No, right. She's found her genre. Like, this is my niche. Time traveling romance. That's what I'm doing.
Time travelers. Like, let's let Rachel McAdams be a time traveler. I want to watch that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really don't have enough movies that are just choosing other movies to be in their multiverse. That's what we need. We need some weird movie that's like, we're going to take these 4 films no one cares about.
Did I call Midnight in Paris Midnight Run? I said Midnight in Paris.
You said Midnight in Paris.
You said Midnight in Paris.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it'll be interesting to see where we're going and what we're going to unlock and whether or not it's going to keep going. Because like we know we have Kang coming in Quantumania.
Yeah. Which I believe they're going to pump the seeds here, obviously, with his connection with Google.
They have to.
Yeah.
I just don't know. There's no other like villain on the board right now that we know about.
We don't have a big bad at the moment. No.
So it'll be interesting if like things like Shang-Chi, the Eternals, Thor 4, and like Blade somehow end up being like how much multiverse stuff are we going to do? Or are we going to like follow a Shang-Chi mysticism storyline, a time travel multiverse storyline with Doctor Strange and vampires?
Yes.
You guys know how I feel about vampires. I'm so excited for Blade.
I mean, in theory, we would have had Morbius already, which we knew had Michael Keaton at the end of that trailer.
Yeah.
Is Sony scheming something?
I feel like Sony
Tyrese was like, it's in the MCU, and then Sony was like, no, it's not.
We just have Michael Keaton. We just did that to get you to spend money at the box office.
Well, literally, I've said it many times. I would not see that movie at all unless I'm only going to see it because Michael Keaton's in it.
Yeah, I had no desire on that. Just like, all right, screw it, I'm in. Yeah.
But who knows? All right, guys, I think that's the show. thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for watching. You should, of course, let us know what you think about the episode on the YouTube comments and leave us a review on iTunes, and then follow the show at Hollywood Already Did It ADI on Twitter and Hollywood Already Did It on Instagram. I'm at, as always, Blake. Terrence is at Terrence Tatum, and Jamie is at Jamie Cinematics, where you can find all of the other things we do, other Hollywood Already Did It shows, and our main podcast, and You Can't Do That Anymore. I do a toy collecting podcast called How Do You Figure? And Jamie is on Phase Zero at comicbook.com from time to time and has now been featured in 2 Disney movies as her quotes.
Yeah.
So watch the Black Widow trailer to see what Jamie thought about Black Widow, or read her whole review on comicbook.com. And you know, have a pleasant tomorrow.